Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
What's up?
Hello, everybody.
I'm back.
And thank goodness for that. So if we didn't lose any listeners over last week's episode, I'm super happy. Yeah, it was.
That was a rough
In my
one.
opinion, it was a rough one.
First of all, you would not have wanted to hear me talking because my voice was very frog-like because I could not. My tonsils were so swollen. But also, as my son likes to put it, I slept for a whole entire day. There was one day where I think I woke up maybe twice the whole day because I had a fever, and it was like I was in so much pain swallowing that it was like better if I just slept and then would just be in a lot of pain to wake up to swallow. And that was it.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough couple of days, to be honest.
But just a side note, check mark another reason why I won't move to Texas, because that's where I fucking got strep throat. And I haven't had strep throat since I was like 20 years old. So denied. Okay, thank you, Texas. You've been real, but not enough for me to live there. What else do we want to talk about? How about we talk about what we're drinking?
I'm just drinking some water because I already had my coffee this morning, and we are recording later in the day. So I'm trying to balance out my caffeine intake with H2O.
I am actually drinking a peppermint tea because I'm on some medication that gives me to make me not feel very good. And I was reading that peppermint tea is one of the things that helps with it.
And so it does.
That's what I be drinking. Right?
I was having the same issues last night. Drank the peppermint tea. And
that better. Did help.
It didn't go away, but it definitely lessened what it was.
Well, that's for acid reflux, but the nauseousness that you get with the medication, I read a lot of people recommended the days that you take the medication to drink peppermint tea like twice a day, and it's supposed to help. And so that's where I'm at.
I think if I get it again, I'll double bag it because it just wasn't very strong peppermint tea. So I think I had too much water per the one bag.
Or you could do like peppermint tea and add Earl Grey and do them together.
Yeah, that's true. They also say for the same issues, they also say chamomile, which I don't know what that tastes like, and then also lemon tea.
See, I don't really like flavored tea at all, so I like black tea, good old black tea. I'll put honey in the tea. Sometimes I did a lot of that when I had strep throat, which, by the way, did not help. All it did was coated my tongue and throat and made it worse, actually. So for those of you out there that have ever had strep throat, don't do honey and tea because it doesn't help. It's not like when you have the flu or like a chest cold where it's going to like break something up. No, it just coats your throat and makes it worse. So don't do that. Just drink like plain old hot water with lemon or some shit, and that's going to be better. That was awful. But I don't like the flavored teas. I don't like green tea, and I don't like, although I know green tea is supposed to be really health benefits, but I don't like the flavor of green tea, and I do not like the green teas that have a flavor to them like lemon. I don't like any of those.
Well, to circle back on your Texas thing, I'm going to do a test in December when we go to travel again for our holiday trip that I'm going to mask and glove you up in the airport because I honestly think you're allergic to the airport.
So I have been thinking about that, and I don't want to be that bitch, but I might be that bitch. I don't need gloves, but
at least we'll bring some wipes and just something.
I don't even know, because the thing is with strep is you don't get it from breathing the air. So that is one thing I do know. It's not like flu and COVID, where flu and COVID you get by breathing the air of somebody, but you don't get it that way with strep. So I must have touched a surface or something that somebody who had strep had touched or sneezed or coughed on. But I firmly believe it's also just like the weather change, because when our daughter lived in South Dakota, she did not have strep throat until she moved to South Dakota. She had it every single year at this time of year. So I just think it's the way that our bodies react to the environment. I think that Texas, while I love the family that lives there in both areas, I just cannot foresee myself ever moving there. I know Jay really wants to move there. I can't do it, especially if I'm going to be getting strep throat every year. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'll live in the rainy Pacific Northwest. Thank you very much. Never say never, but right now, check mark as a no. That's another con in my pro and con list. My only pros for moving to Texas right now are my family members live there. That's it. I have zero other pros. So I have a lot more cons than pros, but that's all I'm not going to go. I don't hate Texas. For those of you listeners who are in Texas, I don't hate Texas. Y'all, it's just too hot there. It's genuinely your weather is too much for me. That's really the biggest con for Texas for me is there's just too much heat coming off that sun and no thank you. I'm like allergic to the sun and I hate the heat. So it's just a bad rap for me altogether.
All right. And we will move on from Texas. And let's focus on who we are here to talk about today. So who is it?
All right. So before we get into the guy we're talking about today, this is another one of those episodes that deserves a special trigger warning. This episode deals with the rape and sexual assault of young children. And so if this is something that you would prefer not to listen to, no problem, as per usual. We will catch you next week. It's still got to be told, but your ears don't have to listen to it. So turn us off if you are not wanting to hear about this type of thing. Okay. If you're still here, welcome. Let's talk about Joseph Duncan III. So he has 5 to 7 victims. His murder dates are specific murder dates: July 6, 1996, April 4th, 1997, May 16th, 2005. The locations of his murders are Washington, California, and Idaho. His method of murder is hitting with a hammer. Characteristics of his murders are kidnapping, rape, and pedophilia. Joseph was born February 25th, 1963 in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He was the fourth of 5 children. His father, Joseph Edward Duncan Jr., and his mother was Lillian Mae Duncan. He also had 3 older sisters and 1 younger brother. Now, his father was in the military, and due to that, his family moved around a lot. Like every 2 to 3 years, they were moving to new places, new states, new cities, because that's how the military life is. Now, his father does end up retiring, and they retire and move and live and stay in Tacoma, Washington. And this is where the family puts down roots. But for the beginning of his life, I mean, there was constant moving around. Now, his mother was described as a domineering woman. Take that for what it is. And Joseph himself claimed that he had been sexually abused as a child. However, his younger brother disputes this allegation and says it never happened. Take that for what you will. So in 1979, Joseph's parents split up and they actually end up divorcing in 1983. Now, not too long after they actually divorce, all 3 of Joseph's sisters leave home. They were all living together with his mother, him and his mother, and all 3 sisters like at the same time. I don't know if they like moved out into like a home together because they were all some like close in age, but they all moved out literally at the same time. And this leaves Joseph to stay with his mom because his brother ends up moving in with his dad. So it's just him and his mom. Now, his father does eventually remarry. They do have a step family, and Joseph does visit his father too. So it's not like his father abandoned him. It was just, he's got now his family with his dad, with his step family, that side, and then he's got his mom. Now in 1978, this is actually Joseph's first recorded sex crime. He was 15 years old and he raped a 9-year-old boy at gunpoint at the age of fucking 15. Before I continue, I'm going to just say this is one of those cases that's going to really piss you off. It really pissed me off. As I'm researching it, I'm looking at my son being like, are you fucking kidding? Can you believe this? And I'm like telling him everything. And my son's literal response is, this is just proof that our justice system sucks.
Well, and this one kind of hits close to home too because of later in the story.
Yeah, there's a part. I mean,
yeah.
Yes. No, I mean, yes. When he gets caught, this guy will become familiar to some of you. Anyone who is like in their 40s and older, you will actually recognize who this guy is from how he gets caught. And then you're going to be like, oh God, I didn't realize that was the guy.
This case was when I started thinking I wanted to do like search and rescue because they were asking for so many people's help during this time. the case that made me think that. Now, I never got into it, but I definitely had thought about it at the time because of what was going on.
Yeah. Okay, so in 1979, Joseph is arrested for driving a stolen car. So he gets caught driving a stolen car. So he's like 16 years oldish. And he is sentenced to juvenile detention, which we all know how T feels about juvenile detention centers. But he was actually sent to Jesse Dislin Boys Ranch in Tacoma. Anything that is a boys ranch, not good. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit. I do not care. There were boys' homes and boys' ranches all over the place, and they all are riddled with fucking bullshit. Bullshit, abuse, and nothing that's helpful. So it was here that he had to meet with a therapist, and he had actually told the therapist that he had bound and sexually assaulted 6 boys. So he is 16 years old in this facility telling his therapist, oh yeah, I've actually bound and sexually assaulted 6 boys prior to coming here. He also then tells that same therapist that he has estimated that he had actually raped a total of 13 boys who were younger than him by the time he was 16. So there was the one boy that he held at gunpoint when he was 15, but apparently there's more. And he's now admitting this and talking about this to his therapist in this juvenile detention center. Now, I know he was in jail for stealing a car. I don't know. This is where it gets wish-washy with the whole, like, patient.
The confidentiality.
Yeah, because you're just kind of like, bro, like, ooh, shit, he's going to get out, right? And he does. Joseph gets released in 1980. So he's in the juvenile detention center for like a year and a half. Well, when he gets out, he ends up abducting a 14-year-old boy at gunpoint with guns that he stole from his neighbor. And he assaults the boy. Sexually assaults the boy. And Joseph does get arrested for this, and he does get convicted. Okay? He is sentenced to 20 years in prison. He's like 17 years old. 20 years would put him at like 37 years old.
But I can almost guarantee you he was not 37 years old when he got out.
He only serves 14 years. He gets out of prison 6 years early. So this is the start of why the fucking justice system sucks balls. There is no reason ever in my mind that a pedophile should be let out of prison early. In my honest opinion, pedophiles should not be let out of prison after the first time.
Well, and they talk about like good behavior and stuff like that.
Correct.
But he's not going to act out his pedophilia
He's a pedophile.
In prison.
Correct.
Amongst a bunch of adults.
Correct. Now in 1994, he is released from prison. Then in 1996, he is arrested for marijuana use, which was against his parole. And he is held in jail for several weeks for this, but he does eventually get released. But when he's released, he has even more restrictions put on his parole. First of all, if you're going to do this whole let them out of prison early thing and then they go and fucking break their parole, immediate back to jail and serve the rest of your sentence and longer. Like,
yep.
There should be...
That should be the consequence of breaking your parole if you get out early.
And I believe in second chances for most people. I do not believe in second chances for pedophiles. Because a pedophile is not a normal human being, quote unquote, normal human being. Normal brains do not think about sexually assaulting or any type of sexual anything with a minor. And if that is how your brain works, it cannot be fixed. It cannot be rehabilitated. Therefore, you should not be able to be out of prison. Ever. I don't care. Build a prison for pedophiles only. I don't give a shit. But they should never be out of prison. And this right here is why. So in 1997, he violates his parole conditions again, and he is returned to prison. I don't know what he did. It doesn't state, but he did something else again. So he's only out of prison for 3 years before he fucking violates his parole twice in 3 years and gets sent back to prison. He gets released from prison in 2000 for good behavior and moves to North Dakota. Now in 2005, so he's been out of prison for 5 years, Joseph is arrested for molestation of 2 boys from 2004. His bail is set at $15,000. For those of you who don't know how bail works, if your bail is $15,000, all that has to be made up is 10% of that to get you out if you go to a bail bondsman. So somebody had to get $1,500 to get him out of jail for molestation of 2 boys, and also never mind the fact that he's already been in jail once for rape. Okay? Why his bail was set at $15,000 in the first place, I have no idea. I told you, this fucking thing pisses me off. I told you. It makes me angry. This bail was paid by an acquaintance / businessman of his, which I'm like, you're a pedophile too, bitch. I can already tell. So after this, Joseph actually ends up just disappearing. He just disappears off, like just gone. And a federal warrant is issued for his arrest because he's fucking gone and they don't know where he is. So we have to step back in time now because the murders did not just happen there. Like the murders happened earlier. So July 6th of 1996, Joseph murders Carmen Cubius, who was 9, and Sammy Jo White, who was 11, in Washington. Now, this was while he was on parole, and this was after his arrest for marijuana usage. So I want to make this very clear. He had already been in jail for fucking rape, and he got out early, and then he broke his parole, and then he got out again and killed two kids. Okay. Now, their remains were not found until February 10th of 1998 in Bothell, Washington. Then in April of 1997, Joseph murdered Anthony Martinez, who was 10 years old, in California. Now, Anthony was in his front yard playing with his friends, and a man approaches him and his friends and asks for help looking for a cat, which the boys are like, absolutely not. Like, bro, this is 97. We understand, like, stranger danger. We don't go to your fucking car. Like,
and
obviously
I guess
not.
you got some candy.
Yeah, like,
in
obviously
your van.
we're not following you. So because of this, he decides to pull a knife on the boys and holds the knife to Anthony's throat and forces him into his car. And after 2 weeks, his body is found in Indio, California. He had been sexually assaulted and was bound with duct tape. There was a sketch that was made by the friends. And actually, I did read one report where Joseph actually tried to take his brother first, and he fought like shit and got away from him. So then he took Anthony instead. And so they had enough interaction with him that they were able to give a sketch to a sketch artist. And they did have a partial fingerprint that was taken off the duct tape that was found. However, nothing came out of it. And at this time, they now had this case and the one from Seattle become cold cases. They have no links to anybody, especially not Joseph. Now, on May 16th, 2005. Now, this is where you guys might know who Joseph Duncan is. The bodies of Brenda Groene, who was 40, Mark McKenzie, who was 37, and Slade Groene, they were all found murdered in their home. Slade was 13. Yeah,
and you can see a shift in age, but you'll understand why as the story goes on.
Yes. Brenda had 2 other children as well. Their names were Dylan and Shasta, and they were actually reported missing after the bodies were found. Like, after the police had showed up, they realized that the 2 children were not in amongst the rest of the people. So the autopsies on the bodies had showed that all of the victims had died as a result of blunt force trauma to the head after being bound. So they'd all been bound and hit in the head with something, probably a hammer, and it had killed all of them. An Amber Alert is then issued for the 2 missing kids, and then a huge, major search starts for the 2 children. Well, on July 2nd of 2005, witnesses state that they saw Shasta, the daughter, at Denny's restaurant in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, with a man sitting at a table. Now, without the man knowing, the staff, so it was I believe, if I remember correctly, because I didn't write it down, it was 2 staff members and 2 customers.
Yep.
They all kind of looked at this girl, and she even says, as an adult now, because she has talked about it, she said, I looked up and saw this man who looked at me, and I nodded at him because I was trying to through my eyes let him know that I am the girl he's looking for. And he nodded back and started talking to the waitresses, right? And so they basically indiscreetly called the police, and
they did a hell of a job. I remember that. And
said, the missing girl that you are looking for is in our restaurant. There is a man with her, blah, blah, blah. And then what they did, these people are fucking heroes, because then what those people did is the 2 customers and the 2 waitresses positioned themselves in different areas of the restaurant so that if the man tried to grab the girl to leave, he wouldn't be able to get far. Because they basically were near the doors of the Denny, so he couldn't just run out.
And it was just the girl with him,
it was
not
just
the boy.
Girl, right? So the police do show up, and they actually walk up to the table, and they ask the little girl what her name is, and she actually replies, "My name is Katie." And then Joseph looks at her and says, "You can tell them." And she says, "My name is Shasta." And they immediately arrest the man. Okay. Now, when they showed up, there's no signs of Dylan. They start talking to Shasta herself, right? And she's like 8 or 9 at the time. And basically she tells them that he had bound all of her family members, that she was woken up by her mom, and that she was woken up with her mom saying that somebody was in the house. And she was basically brought out, and her family members were all bound up and on the floor. And she said he ends up taking her and her little brother. And then she says that he sexually abused them. He made threats to them, and that Joseph actually sexually assaulted her brother and ended up killing him by shooting him in the back of the head. So she witnessed this. And then he burned Dylan's body and then made Shasta help him dispose of the ashes. So he had put him in a tarp, burned the body, and then took the ashes and made her walk with him to go dispose of them, like in a creek area. And they had multiple tips come in from this point about the case, which led them to kind of focus on what areas to search for. Because, of course, she's little. She doesn't know, like, she couldn't tell them exactly where she was, right? She just knows she was somewhere with this guy. And so they start searching all over. And they end up with a lot of the tips, and with Shasta's descriptions, they end up searching the area of the Idaho-Montana border. And they are searching it for Dylan. Well, on July 4th of 2005, so 2 days after she is recovered, the remains of Dylan were found in Lolo National Forest near St. Regis Mountain. And they know that these are his remains because they used DNA testing to verify that they were Dylan's bones, or his remains. Now, after Joseph is arrested, he actually becomes a suspect in multiple unsolved cases of missing or murdered children. And I want to side note this really quick. When they asked him why he killed them or whatever, he said that he had seen Shasta and Dylan playing in their swimming suits in the front yard, I think.
Yeah, in the front yard. He drove by.
And he wanted those kids.
Yep.
Because he's a fucking pedophile and shouldn't be out of jail.
Yep. And he went back later that night and bound them all up.
Now, he is eventually linked to the murder of Anthony Martinez through the fingerprints that they found on the duct tape on his body. And then while he's in custody, he actually confesses to murdering Carmen and Sammy Jo in Washington. So he actually admits to those. He is then charged with murder in 3 different courts. He is charged with murder, or he was charged in Idaho for the murder of Brenda, Mark, and Slade. He is charged in California for the murder of Anthony Martinez. And he is charged in the United States District Courts for the murder of Dylan and his kidnapping plus the kidnapping of Shasta.
Yeah, because I think it was something about it going across state lines and all that stuff is what made it like go to the district court.
On July 13th of 2005 is when his first trial was supposed to start, but it ends up getting deferred to a later date because they said that's like only 8 days after he was arrested. They're like, we need a little more time to prep. I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
So they end up setting it for October 16th, 2006. But as soon as the trial begins, Joseph literally stands up and pleads guilty to all of the charges. So he doesn't even go through any sort of anything, actually. And he is sentenced to 3 life sentencing for the kidnappings. However, they wanted to wait for the murder sentence, like to give him the murder sentence because of the other murder trials. I don't know what made them decide that, but they were like, let him go to these other murder trials and then we'll give him a sentence. So Joseph then pleads guilty to all the murder charges brought against him in the federal trial on December 3rd, 2007. And he had been offered and accepted a plea deal, which the details of said plea deal were never released. So nobody knows what his actual plea deal was.
Why were you trying to get him to confess to more?
Right. Especially because his sentencing was 3 death sentences. So normally a plea deal would be you don't get the death penalty if you admit.
Right.
But the fact that he was still able to get the death penalty tells me like what kind
Maybe
of a
that was
deal?
his plea because he stood up and said, I'm guilty. He's like, look, I will say whatever you want. Just give me the death penalty so I can die.
Well, he didn't get his wish, so that's fine. But I don't know if that's what it was, or maybe like you said, maybe he was suspected in other ones. And so they were like, listen, but that still doesn't work out for anybody's favor.
No.
Like, or maybe it was, you don't have to tell us about any of the other murders, just plead guilty to these. Like, I don't fucking, like,
weird.
I don't understand how that's a plea deal. So they come back with a sentence of 3 death sentences. And then he's sentenced with his 3 life sentences for the kidnapping of Shasta and Dylan. Then on January 24th, 2009, Joseph is now extradited to California to face charges for the murder of Anthony Martinez. And he agrees to a plea deal there as well and pleads guilty on March 15th, 2011. And he is sentenced to 2 more life sentences without the possibility of parole. He's never getting out of jail. So in total, he actually ends up receiving 3 federal death sentences with 6 life sentences on top of it. Now, on March 28th, 2021, Joseph actually dies of brain cancer while sitting on death row. He was 58 years old. So he didn't even get, which that pisses me off more than anything because that was 2021.
Yeah.
2021. He was given the death penalty in 2009. That motherfucker lived. No, actually in 2007. He was given that in 2007.
Yeah,
so he lived for 14 years on death row. Okay.
Longer than the kids he killed.
Yes.
Were alive.
When there's no chance he's ever getting out of jail. So why the fuck we didn't, I don't know. I don't know why the death penalty, probably because Washington put in some fucking weird shit and we weren't allowed to do it. I don't know. So that is the story of Joseph Duncan. I do have actually a little handful of shots.
Well, let's get into it.
Okay. So while he was in prison, Joseph also confessed to killing the 2 girls in Seattle in 1996, obvious. But if you notice, no charges were ever filed against him for those. Did you notice that he didn't go to a Washington court? He didn't get charged for their murders at all.
That was the plea deal.
That's maybe it. Because I don't understand why. I mean, he confessed to those and they didn't do anything about it. Now, before he was arrested, Joseph had actually published a website called The Fifth Nail. Now, this is where he put down his thoughts and ideas. His name, or he said that he named it this because apparently there's a lore that apart from the 4 nails that they used to crucify Jesus, there was a 5th nail that was hidden by the Romans on the body. Okay. And that's why he named it the 5th nail. I don't know if he's trying to say he's like Jesus or I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Now, his website, actually, the whole point of it was he talked about what his life was as a sex offender, what it's like to be a sex offender. But he also multiple times denied being a pedophile. Brother, you literally raped only children.
That goes hand in hand, bud.
That's pedophilia. That's literally textbook definition.
You rape children. That's a pedophile.
So after his death, Anthony's mother said, and I quote, Anthony is the 10-year-old that was killed in California. She said, "The sun is brighter today and my soul is lighter. The world is a more beautiful place without the evil of Joseph Duncan. God chose to make his end a long suffering, and I believe that is fitting. The horror of his thoughts consumed him." Now, I appreciate that she feels that way because me as a person who's just researching this, I am pissed off that he died of brain cancer. However, that is not going to be an easy death either. So,
no, but there's so many things
definitely did suffer.
Yeah.
Especially because dealing with cancer and being in jail, I mean, that's going to be... You're
not getting the best.
You're not. So
care.
I get where she's coming from when she says that. Now, Anthony's father said, "While I would have liked to witness his execution, knowing he is now standing before God being held accountable for what he has done, what he did to my son, and the horrible crimes he committed to others, that's real justice." And again, I commend this family because I would literally be so angry at the justice system for not killing him because you want to watch him die. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I would want to watch them die because they killed my child.
I think if he was diagnosed, you're stage 4, they should just go, okay, we're going to move this up. But that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Well, and him being on the med, because he did chemo and stuff, that's probably why they didn't do the death penalty then, because he was on medications that could fuck it up. But y'all had a good fucking 10 years before he was diagnosed, because he was diagnosed when he had stage 4 brain cancer. He was given only months to live when they found out.
Yeah, and they're probably thinking, if we just let him die, it's cheaper on the taxpayers than to pay to stick a needle in him.
Which it's fucking not. It's actually more expensive to keep them alive on death row.
But that's inhumane. You got to go through trying to heal them and chemo and all that stuff. I don't know. I don't know. have thoughts about that.
Now, Shasta herself. So remember, Shasta is the little girl who was kidnapped by him. She actually, as an adult, she for a very long time wouldn't talk about it. She finally felt she was at a place she could talk about it. So she has talked about it. And she actually said, one thing is for sure, he does not exist anymore. Now we can live our lives knowing that. For so long, I have been struggling with hate towards this man. Today, I woke up feeling like my soul is finally free. Which that gives me chills. Good on you. Like, that gives me chills because I just sit there and
I'm glad
can't.
You can forgive. I can't.
I'm saying,
I'm motherfucker.
Like, I can't imagine the horrific things that she went through. And to be honest with you, I feel bad doing this podcast because of her, honestly. I feel bad because she is a surviving victim. And I know that the families, like Anthony's parents and things like that, I know they are victims as well, but she's an actual surviving victim of this man who witnessed her brother being killed. Okay, so I feel terrible, but at the same time, it's empowering to know that that's her stance, right? That's how she feels about this scenario. And it's like she gives people like me hope that things will be better.
Yeah, she is a very strong individual.
Yeah. Now, during his trial, the jury was offered counseling due to the horrific evidence they had to see. Okay. I just did jury duty, and I'm going to tell you right now, I would not be allowed on this case. Because I know,
you say kid,
I was going to say, because I know one of the things they're going to ask as being a parent, like, can you be unbiased towards somebody who harmed children? It's like, no, I cannot. Like, I just can't. Sorry. I can't even try to understand where you came from. Now, the reason for this was part of their evidence that they showed obviously was like pictures of the bones and the bodies and things like that. But it also included a 33-minute video of Joseph Duncan, who was nude, torturing, physically torturing, verbally assaulting, and sexually abusing a young boy who was also nude, who was restrained. This young boy was Dylan. So there's an actual 33-minute video that he took of his abuse of Dylan. And the jury had to watch it.
See, I'd have thrown my chair if they're not.
I just don't think
down.
I could have. I just don't think.
No,
I could have.
And what I don't understand is like if he's admitting his guilt, why are we even going to trial?
I'm saying, well, and here's the thing. What's really weird though is his trial. So he didn't go to trial though. This was literally just the trial for his sentencing. He never did an actual trial because he pled guilty in all of them. So he didn't actually do trial. This was the trial to get him sentenced, but they still have to give you, I guess, some evidence or something because he didn't go to trial. He pled guilty to in all of his trials that he went to. So I'm not really quite sure
I don't get it.
Why they had to watch this video.
And to me, if you stand up and you're like, I'm guilty, I did it 100%, then you should get the maximum fine.
Well, but he was doing plea deals, right? Yeah. So it's like you can only get what they're going to give you, but it's like
Well, and I've always thought it to be kind of weird that we have ranges when it comes to penalties. Like, oh, you murdered somebody, you can get 15 to 25 years. Like, no, fuck that. You murdered somebody, you get 25 years. Like, well, to me, the fact that there's a range of what your punishment is, like, if you do this, it equals this. Like,
but when you think about it, there's differences, right? Because like there's people who manslaughter, right? Manslaughter is different than murder. And then there's people with murder. It's like there are people who are charged with murder that maybe aren't to the extent of killing more than one person. Like maybe they murdered somebody who was their abuser in their past life, and they came back and murdered that person. Which then there's extenuating circumstances, right? That comes with it, which is why I think there's a range. For somebody like him, you're just a bad fucking person. So you don't deserve nothing. You deserve zero anything. Like the maximum of everything.
Yeah, and there should be multipliers onto sentencing. Like,
I mean, there was, to be fair,
we're going to give
6 life
no,
sentences.
but like, we're going to give you 10 years. But the person was under 18, so that's automatically times 3, so you're getting 30 years.
Yeah, yeah.
You start making shit like that, people will think twice about doing stuff.
But see, that's not true. That's the reason why punishment doesn't work the way people think that it does. That's why our prison system is broken, because everybody thinks that punishing people will make people think twice. And to be honest with you, all punishing does is make people try harder not to get caught. It doesn't stop them. It's not like if you're a serial killer in the moment, you are definitely not going, so how much jail time would I get for this? You're just going to fucking do it. It's just, you're going to be a lot more diligent about making sure you don't get caught. Punishment is reserved for like the worst of the worst people. I think this is why I'm so adamant about prison reform and rehabilitation for most criminals, because most criminals will get out of jail and they will reoffend because they're just threatened with punishment. Well, fucking, you go to jail, do your fucking jail time for 5 years, get out, who gives a fuck, move on.
But
You're
like
just
you
going to
just
try
said-
harder not to get caught.
But like you said earlier, people with pedophilia and stuff like that.
They should never get out of prison. Never. I think that's one of the few times serial killers and pedophiles, or not even pedophiles, rapists, you know, those kind that never should get out of jail. I think if you murder somebody, there's a story behind it. You got to find the story first. But if you have murdered multiple people, no, you never get out of jail. If you are a pedophile, never get out of jail. If you're a rapist, never get out of jail. Period. I don't give a fuck. You don't have to give them the death penalty. They should never be out of jail ever again. And this is why. Because this man was arrested. He was arrested for pedophilia. Well, I guess it wasn't technically pedophilia because he wasn't, whatever. He was arrested for raping. Okay. He was arrested for those things. And yet he got out of jail. Like, I just, my brain can't wrap around that. This guy and again, from the age of 15, he's already admitting to doing this multiple times to a therapist while getting arrested for burglary. So the therapist can't say anything because they are bound by the client privilege, right? Or the whatever privilege. And so they can't say anything, but there's got to be some, I don't know. There's got to be some extenuating way because this could have been prevented. That's what I'm trying to say is this could have been prevented. Keep that motherfucker in jail. And those kids, well, some of them sort of died, I guess, but like Dylan, Slade, Shasta, that would have never happened to them if you would have kept him in jail.
But if we had the right rehabilitation program set up, you're saying people like that can't be rehabilitated?
No, fuck no. No. A pedophile cannot be rehabilitated. When I talk about rehabilitation, I'm talking about people who are in jail for theft, drugs, selling drugs, drug usage, tax evasion, assault, maybe murder, depending on the circumstances, manslaughter. Those are the people who can be rehabilitated because those people can learn how to not live that life when they get out of prison. A pedophile cannot learn how to not be a pedophile. They cannot. I have zero beliefs that pedophiles can be rehabilitated. And I know that people are going to probably be like, well, I know my neighbor. I don't give a shit about your neighbor because your neighbor is most likely still watching child porn. So pedophilia is a problem in your brain. Okay. It's a problem in your brain. There's something wrong in your brain and it cannot be fixed. If you are a pedophile, you do not ever deserve to get out of prison. That is my stance on it. Y'all can believe differently. That is my stance on it. Shasta did try to actually petition for a Slade and Dillon's law when she was like 18. Now, what this law would have done is it would have basically petitioned that convicted sex offenders should never be released from prison. I concur. I agree. I think if you are a convicted sex offender, and again, please do not mistake me when I'm saying there are levels of sex offenders. The only sex offenders I believe that should be allowed out of prison are the ones who are in prison or doing time or whatever for statutory rape. And to be honest with you, most of the time they don't go to prison. They get a probation. And most of the time, because statutory rape is typically an age issue. It's normally like an 8 or a 21-year-old or a 16-year-old, which I'm not saying it's right. Please let me make this clear. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that I do not think all sex offenders are created equal, I guess I should say. Not all sex offenders are created equal, but I'm talking about pedophiles. There is absolutely zero room in my mind that a pedophile, because remember, pedophiles go after children. They go after children. They are not fucking like 25 dating a 16-year-old. They go after like 10-year-olds. There's no room in our society for that, period. So basically what she was saying is that right now, apparently, there is a 3-strike rule for sex offenders. So if you are a sex offender and you are caught and convicted 3 times, you get life in prison. So what she was petitioning for is that it would become a 1-strike rule. So if you are a sex offender and you get caught, you don't get out of prison ever. I'm not opposed to it. And I honestly do not understand why this never was put into action. And to be really frank, it's very disappointing, to say the least, that she brought that up and that shit never was brought into action.
No, we got to protect our babies.
Because again, I will say this a million times, Sex offenders cannot be rehabilitated. They do not belong on our streets. If you are a convicted sex offender and you listen to this podcast, I'm literally talking about you because you do not deserve to be on the streets.
Pedophiles.
Sex offenders, convicted sex offenders. That is who I'm talking about, not just pedophiles. I'm talking convicted sex offenders. I'm talking somebody who goes out and rapes a woman, somebody who goes out and rapes a man. I'm literally talking about somebody who is a sex offender at the highest level. I'm not talking about age discrepancies. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are, because again, a convicted, yes, okay, sure. A convicted sex offender could be somebody age related, but jail time is not typically given to those types of sex offenders. It is normally the ones who are pedophiles. They get charged with molestation. They get charged with rape. They get charged with sexual battery. Those are all the things. Okay. Those people should not be allowed out of prison. But yes, in this specific scenario, I'm specifically talking about pedophiles. If you wanted to argue with me about sex offenders shouldn't be on the street, fine, I'll hear you. But I will not hear you tell me that pedophiles deserve to be on the street. They don't.
No.
A pedophile is the worst of the worst, in my opinion, of a sex offender. And I don't know why they're not held at a standard of being the worst of the worst criminal. We hold a standard of worst of the worst, get the death penalty, right? Or life in prison. I don't know why pedophiles are not held at those standards. I don't understand.
Should be.
They absolutely should be.
That's up there with the worst of the worst.
You're attacking innocent children.
Yeah, to take the innocence from a small child
Correct.
that looks up to adults.
Correct.
Like, you're taking advantage of that. And
yeah, it's pretty.
There should be a special place in the prison system for you. I think.
Well, for reals, there is, because that's why they're put in a protected unit, because they'll get killed.
We shouldn't do that either.
I will just, if you don't understand how angry I am about this case, if you can't tell, I'm going to just seal it off with this. During Shasta's interview, she was describing what it was like. She was describing how her brother was killed. And she described about how the day she basically saved her own fucking life at 9 years old. She said that Joseph looked at her and asked her, how do you want to die? By gunshot or by strangling? And she said, in my brain, I was thinking, if he's going to shoot me, that scared me because I knew that's how my brother had died. So I said, I decided to go with strangling because I thought maybe I could talk him out of it. This is a fucking child, okay, who is fighting for her life. And she said she told him strangling. And he made her lay down and he started to strangle her. And she said everything started to go white because she was obviously not being able to breathe. And she said, please, Jet, don't. Because I guess Jet was maybe a nickname or something of his. And, or maybe that's what she called him. And he let go and looked at her and said, when you said my name, I realized how much you care about me, so I can't do this. So this fucking 9-year-old child used her manipulation skills to keep herself alive. And the reason they went to Denny's that day was because she had basically made him think she would never leave his side. She fucking did that. She should never have had to do that.
Oh, hell no.
And she should never have been in that situation because he should have been in jail because he was a pedophile from the time he was fucking 15 years old. He had raped a 9-year-old child. So let's not forget, this is not the kind of person that I could even look into his background to try to justify or to say, let me explain. No, because even his brother has said, no, there is no excuse for him. He is a sorry excuse for a human. And he is absolutely 100% the type of person that was born a shitty person. And he never deserved to be out of jail after serving time for molesting 2 boys. Never, ever, ever. But yet, here we stand. So, put yourself in that shoes and you think if you can actually justify a pedophile ever getting out of prison, because I can't.
Well, and we don't have video, and she'll probably cut it out, but just so you guys know, she's animated enough to where she's swinging hands around.
I'm very angry about this one.
Smacked the boom mic a couple of times, so...
I'm very angry about this
definitely.
Because, again, this is one that it could have been prevented. It could have
Yeah.
been prevented, but our justice system is really a failure.
And we come across that a lot. And
We do, and it's
it
very
hits-
frustrating.
Yeah, and it hits a little different. I mean, we're mad about a lot of things that we find out. It just gets worse when it's the innocence of
It's a
children.
child.
So, it's stupid.
Anyways.
And I'm sure the people out there listening, unless you are a pedophile, feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, for real. I mean, and apologies for being so animatedly angry. And I hope it doesn't come across as that, because I don't get very mad very often, but ones like this I do because it was preventable. There were this man was caught and put into prison and then was released from prison and then broke parole multiple times and then went back to prison. And it's like, I don't have... I don't have it. And then when they finally let him out of prison again, he ran. And then there was a federal warrant out for his arrest, but nobody knew where he was. And it's like, what do you fucking expect?
Yeah.
What did you expect? This guy is clearly a bad egg. Just fucking keep him in jail. And again, I would, if Shasta were to ever start that fight again to try to get a Slade and Dillon's law passed, I'd be the first one to sign that fucking petition, because I absolutely think that there needs to be a change in our policy for pedophiles. I do. I don't think pedophiles ever deserve a second chance. I will die on that hill. Pedophiles do not deserve second chances. They just don't.
And with that being said,
Thank you.
We'll try to wrap this up on a higher note.
Thank you for listening to me rant, rave, and bitch about Joseph Duncan III. And I really do appreciate all of you. And I really, really appreciate the fact that even though last week I did not have myself on here, but it was Jay and Sierra, I do appreciate, we've had quite a few downloads of just that episode. And, I'm happy. I'm happy that you guys appreciate Jay as well without me here. But just remember who does all the legwork, because they didn't have an episode without it. So just remember, if T is out, I know you did. Oh, I did listen to the episode. I absolutely did.
You finished it?
I did. And I just know if T is out, that's the kind of episode you're getting. You're going to just get some chit chat, which is not necessarily bad. Sometimes it's a nice break just to kind of chit chat a little bit. But other than that,
now we're back to the nitty gritty.
Again, thank you so much for listening to us, and downloads. They keep going up and we appreciate you. And I cannot believe we're 83 episodes in. I can't believe that we're getting so close to 100 episodes. It does not feel like we have been doing this for this long. And so I really, really appreciate everything and all of our listeners, because we definitely can now say we have loyal listeners, because we have got some downloads every week.
The people that have been downloading from the beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So continue to download us, like us, share us. If you feel that you want to say something, you can DM us, you can message us on any of our socials, or you can just email us, your choice. And other than that, I have nothing left to say except for thank you for listening to our story about Joseph Duncan III, the shitty pedophile who never should have been out of prison. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.